He's made his way back to the Metroplex. He is Nick Harris of the Star-Telegram.
How we doing, Matt?
In all his glory.
How we doing?
I'm good. How was it to watch the Cowboys last night? A nice crowd out there. They almost feels like, Nick, the conquering heroes. They've made it back. People still talking about the joint practice with the Rams. The fallout continues. But it looked like a good, hearty crowd out there, and looked like everybody had a nice time. And what happens is that these things, there'll be a specific play or something that really stands out. And I was taken aback with Caleb Downs. I like that punt. I like the celebration of a interception. I like the build up to it. It was just a funny kind of athletic little move that he made, and he punted the ball. Now, can you tell me, did the punt, like, how far did that go? Was that like a 50-yard punt after he made that interception in the end zone?
He got some good hang time on it. It probably went 35, 40 yards. I don't think he's, challenging Brian Anger anytime soon, but it was an athletic move.
Yeah. And what was the energy like out there? I think some of you guys were describing that as like, maybe even a little bigger crowd than usual when they return and they open up a couple of those practices to the local fans. Did there seem a little more energy in there even than normal, or are we reading too much into things?
I think attendance-wise, it was probably about the same. But okay. If you're talking energy-wise, you do feel a bit more from the fan base this year than you did at this point last year. And I think that just speaks to the offseason moves they've made, how things have gone in camp, knock on wood, how healthy they've been through this part in camp as well. And the fan base certainly feels that.
All right, and Jaishawn Barham speaks. Is that pretty rare? I remember that story of him coming out of Michigan. He wasn't a guy that liked to do too many interviews, and he does kind of have a bit of a scowl, when he's talking and everything. To me, he seems like kind of an interesting guy. Yeah. But I would say this, coming off that preseason game, I mean, I think if we're talking about breakout players, other than maybe Joe Milton, that Barham tape from the other night, and just kind of watching that and watching him kind of, come in there and make plays in the run game. I would say it's been a good past week or so for him. Nick, does that extend even back into the training camp? You just returned from Oxnard, like where, and I guess he's had that injury, that groin injury that he had to overcome. But like, of all the rookies, maybe other than Downs, is Barham the guy that's made the biggest impression on you?
Yeah, easily so. And from the start of camp, they had him working with the ones, whether it be at the Mike spot or at the Will spot. They've trusted him with a lot of those off-ball responsibilities. But you've also seen him rush off the edge a little bit. It's not what you're going to see the majority of the time. You are going to see him off-ball whenever he is on the field. But, before that groin injury, I had wrote that I think that he's going to have a pretty significant role in this defense. I don't think he's necessarily going to be a starter, but I think he's going to have a big role. And then the injury slowed him down just a bit, just because he was out for a week. And then he came back, only had one practice before going out there in the Cardinals game. And we saw what that film looked like you mentioned, Matt. And yeah, the Cowboys really feel like they have something special in Jaishawn Barham. Regular season will determine a lot, but from the returns that they've gotten from their third-round pick so far, it's been pretty encouraging. And he handled the Mike responsibilities in that game against the Cardinals on Saturday. So, maybe they do have their backup Mike or a 1B option as a Mike whenever they do roll into week one.
Okay, so doesn't always want to do interviews, but okay on the mic during the game. Is that right?
Actually, he finally did do his first interview since camp started last night. And he was great. He was great. And it's been a little bit like pulling teeth trying to get him in front of the camera, but he finally did it, and he was fantastic. So I don't imagine we're going to get a lot of Jaishawn Barham quotes as time goes on.
Is there, of the new folks that have come in and some of the players they've added, including Gary, who's your kind of the the new quote of camp? Who was your of the rookie? To? Is there anybody that you really have found yourself gravitating toward of some of the newer players?
You're talking about from a quote standpoint, right? I would probably have to go with I'd probably have to go with Rashawn Gary. That would probably be the guy. He's just been around the league a little bit. He'll drop some wisdom on you every once in a while. Nothing earth shattering, but he's had some good quotes so far. And Caleb Downs has been good too. He's super wise. I think he understands the game, but he also understands the mental aspect of the game too. And he's thrown some quotes at us that have been pretty good.
Did you get to see any of the young Yarish's, Tommy Yarish, some of his work the other night on the sideline? Did you go back and analyze some of his work at all and take a peek?
I am the self-proclaimed president of the Tommy Yarish fan club, and I was crushed because as I was trying to get the stream to work in Phoenix from the press box on Saturday night, apparently we were blacked out because we were in Phoenix and we had to watch the Phoenix broadcast. No. And I can't find it anywhere. So if anyone has a recording of it, I got to see my boy in action. I heard he was great, though. Nothing but positive reviews on social media and from the rest of the guys who were watching it back home. But yeah, shout out to Tommy. He's the man.
One thing he did great, but this is not a thing on him. They linger with the camera. He'll finish the interview and he's doing everything he's supposed to do, and because he's sitting there until they tell him to clear. Yeah. But Channel 11 or Cowboys TV, whatever we call it, they have this thing that they like to do where they just kind of let the thing linger for a while, and then they wait. And it does seem like Yarish has a good relationship with the players because they all kind of give him they always want to give him the hug. They want to give him like the little half hug, but he was being very professional. But it's just like, I'm going to say it to Bill Jones. I'm like, don't keep the camera on him like for 10 seconds after the interview. That's a weird thing to do because he just has to sit there like this, just staring. But I actually did think he did that's got to be a little bit nerve wracking and a little scary if you haven't done that much.
Can I blow your mind, Matt?
Yeah.
He's 22 years old. Does that blow your mind? That's incredible.
Yeah, I was worried. Yeah, last time I was out in Oxnard, I think he was with us out there at the what's that bar, the famous bar?
The Rudder Room.
The Rudder Room. And I remember thinking, I don't think I should be buying this guy a drink. I don't know if he's 21. So anyway, he did a very nice job. And I don't know if this is they've had different somebody every week. So I don't know if they're going to run somebody else in or maybe Yarish will get to go for one more week as the Cowboys close down the preseason. By the way, what is on Friday, this last preseason game, like historically, the final preseason game really doesn't mean, not that any of them mean that much, but certainly the guys trying to make the roster and, with what Brown has done in the preseason games has been huge, and now he seems to be one of those fringe roster guys. How many true battles are you still watching this week as they get ready for a cut down here soon to go all the way down to, and again, now they have bigger practice squads, and so it's a little bit different how we view these things. But as you do your projections, where are the battles still happening? Is there still a little bit of a battle at wide receiver, and there are still some guys maybe in that secondary that are battling for those final spots?
Yeah, I would say there's probably 3 to 4 spots up for grabs going into this last game. I'll start on the offensive side, the offensive line. Do you take Drew Shelton and Nate Thomas? And if you do, you don't really have room for another additional tackle, but is there a lot of confidence in those two guys? I don't know if the answer is yes, and that's been really tough to watch in the preseason. And so are you factoring in potentially a veteran option on the offensive line? It's something you have to factor in. And if not, then you're looking at, an extra interior body. Is it a guy like Trevor Keegan? Does he make the cut? And, he hasn't been perfect in the preseason either. Ajani Cornelius is another name. At the receiver spot, the question is if they are going to take 5 or 6. If they take 6, then I think Camden Brown's on the team. If they take 5, then I think it's Jonathan Mingo that gets that 5th spot, and Brown is on the outside looking in. At the cornerback spot, you have the top 3 in Deron Bland, Kobe Durant, and Savone Revel. After that, it's a couple of question marks. Devin Moore, I'm pretty sure, makes this team, the 4th-round pick out of Florida, just because he is the rookie. He is a top 4-round pick. After that, is it Darion Kendrick? Is it Kalen Carson? Is it a veteran addition? I think that 5th spot could be up for grabs going into this last game. And then I'll look at the safety spot as well. Julius Wood, does he potentially have an opportunity to crack this team? And then at the edge spot, Sam Williams and Maris Leofau, I think, are competing for 1 spot. I think James Houston is also in that mix, but I think he's more on the safer side of things, although he is pretty duplicate with what they already have in the room with Von Miller, Rashawn Gary, Malachi Lawrence. But I think he's justified enough from his production last year to be on the team.
Are you buying? Is Jerry still out there when he's not talking about HEB? Is he still? By the way, what'd you think of that HEB ad? We had the hip hop, we had some country. It looked like some of my kicker dancing at Baylor. We'd go out to a Melody Ranch and do the pretzel, some things like that. Those were some good times there. And then they had the Cowboys cheerleaders involved in that. I mean, it's an odd thing because when I go to HEB, I don't really think of dancing. Like none of that stuff really to me translated to like buying my groceries, but whatever. What'd you think of that? The HEB presentation, that seemed like a pretty big deal out there.
I grew up watching Jason Witten and Albertsons commercials, and so now I guess we're going to have to get used to seeing George Pickens and HEB commercials. That was the big thing I took away from it. But, yeah, I mean, HEB is a Texas brand, so, shout out to the Cowboys for getting that one done.
All right. Oh, I know where I was going. Jerry, you remember Jerry doing that dancing commercial? That was a big one. And that was around that same time. Are you still think – I think Jerry and Steven love to kind of get it out there. Oh, we're still looking. We're still open for business. That seemed to be a recurring kind of thing. Now that they have Von Miller, I guess I kind of was curious about your initial thoughts on Von in his fit, because I don't think that may have just happened the other day when you were on the golf course and we got cut off because I think you were, you had a shot at a birdie and you had to go. I want to get your thoughts on Von, but also, like, where is the Nick Harris meter? Like, are you still like 80, 90% that they may not be done and they may do something very interesting, or is that too high on the Harris meter for what they might try to do and might try to add to this team?
Yeah, I'll start with Von Miller. I think, if you set your expectations right, then I think it's a good move. And the expectation should be, hey, he played 37% of snaps with Washington last year. You would expect it to be around the same going into this season. He's going to be your designated pass rusher, come in on passing downs, late downs, long downs, and just pin his ears back and go get after the quarterback. And, if he gets you 4 or 5 sacks, then it was worth it at the end of the day. I wouldn't expect to get the 9 that he had last year. But I think 4 or 5 is a healthy expectation. And then off the field, he's going to give you wisdom to the guys in that room, whether it be a Malachi Lawrence or Donovan Ezeraku. He was caught on the broadcast on Saturday night in Phoenix coaching up Malachi Lawrence and on the sideline. And so that's also the value you get in Von Miller. He praises himself on being, a first ballot Hall of Fame teammate. And I think we've already seen that in the first, week and a half he's been on the team. And that was a big reason why they signed him. They wanted that value of what he brings from his experience in the league going into his 15th year. Your second question about, if are they going to make a big move before the season begins? I'm leaning toward no. Okay. I think if they add to this team, which I actually do think they will add to this team, but I think it's going to be depth spots, whether it be an extra veteran tackle or an extra veteran corner, like a potentially a Taylor Decker and a Dory Jackson or a Kenny Moore, names like that. I don't think, if you're keeping a pulse on the Max Crosby situation, I don't think that's happening anytime soon, at least.
Okay. Yeah. I am taking a peek at that. The Milton story is so interesting from the guy who came out that, everybody could throw the football to the moon and could throw it like on his knees, 80 yards or whatever. He's gone from kind of a novelty act to a guy that now, and I thought that was interesting. I like stuff you write, Nick, because
thank you.
Some of it confirms, and maybe this is, I'm saying how much I like myself too, but no, but sometimes you write, I just like some of your approach, because the immediate thing I thought about was like, okay, like if Sam Howell is good enough to be a backup, and most people think that he is, like how much could Milton command? It was that same question I was asking the other day, and then Joe or you asked about Camden Brown. Well, what could Camden Brown make in college? What does LSU or Ole Miss or somebody pay him? But those are the thoughts that sort of come to mind with Milton and the way he's looked. Like how valuable, when you started kind of peeking around and talking to some of the powers that be in the evaluators in the NFL, how much has he shot up in their eyes, do you think?
So the best that Joe Milton, the absolute best that he could probably get on the trade market today would be a 4th-round pick. And that would be in a very specific scenario where a quarterback desperate team needs somebody and wants somebody with tools and is open to potentially having a low floor if it doesn't work out. Because Joe Milton, he still has only started one game in the regular season in his career, and it wasn't a meaningful game. And you have to balance that if you are going to trade for Joe Milton. And so I think at the absolute best, it would be a 4th. I think realistically it'd be a 5th. That's why, I laid out in that article yesterday on the Star Telegram. It's like, okay, if that's the best he can get on the open market right now, hold on to him. You still have him another year under contract in 2027. And worst case scenario, and it's a great worst case to have, then you enact the Green Bay Packers Malik Willis plan of how they just developed him under Jordan Love for the last couple of years. He started some meaningful games when Love went down with a knee injury early in 2025, and he came in and is now going to give Green Bay a 3rd-round compensatory pick by signing with the Miami Dolphins. And so, I think that's probably a more realistic scenario if things go great for Joe Milton on Friday and the next preseason. And then you have a really capable backup quarterback the rest of the way too.
Yeah, Green Bay's only been doing that for about 30 years, by the way. It goes back to Matt Hasselbeck and then whoever they had, Aaron Brooks, who ends up with New Orleans. So it is interesting how some teams are able to do that. Take me inside this Star Telegram story going on at your newspaper. You hate it. You hate to see something like this. They have the beat writer, Stephen Johnson. They have pulled his credential, which obviously comes through the Star Telegram. He's going to go on and cover this game on Saturday in Ireland. And again, this probably makes it even more interesting of a trip and story, because what if he has to, he may have to sit out in the stands to do it or whatever. They may pay for a ticket. Something tells me the TCU will back off of this, and he'll probably end up being in the press box and covering this game. But it's not they don't like how the story was reported, and that the victim in this alleged attack in the locker room, receive some blowback or threats as a part of this reporting. But Nick, as we both know, even though Stephen didn't give up the name of the victim or anything like this, if there's an alleged attack, everybody in that locker room probably has heard. A lot of them probably saw it happen, knows who it is. And so I don't exactly understand here, like where TCU, what ground they think they're standing on. I thought that was interesting because I think you as a colleague got involved, and now the Star Telegram has had somebody else write a story on the website about this. Any movement on this story, Nick? And from what you can gather, what is TCU basing this on? Or they're basically almost blaming these threats to the victim on the reporting by Stephen of this incident that took place in fall practice out there at TCU.
Yeah, I'll lay out the situation. So Jacob Fields, a safety transfer from Louisiana Tech, was involved in an altercation where he struck Dozie Ekunkama, wide receiver. He's originally from Keller. Has been with the TCU program for a couple of years. And it happened in the locker room. A case filing was made with TCU campus police in the days after by the TCU football administration. And Stephen was able to not only get the report, but also get a source close to Fields talking about what led to the situation. And the situation basically laid out that Fields had been, a target of harassment and threats in the locker room by teammates over the course of a few weeks during fall camp. And that when the concerns were brought to the coaching staff, that the concerns were not really validated, and that it led to the situation where Fields struck the player. So Stephen took that information, took it to TCU, and was like, hey, do you want to comment on this? They declined to comment. So Stephen, verifying with other reputable sources close to Fields, was able to run that story with Fields' account. And TCU didn't like that. And it's strange that their reasoning for pulling the credential is because there were threats made to Dozie, when in reality, Stephen never mentioned Dozie's name. The first time that he did was after Dozie publicly put out on his Instagram that he was the victim in the assault. And so he credited that. And so that tells me a couple things. That tells me, one, TCU knows their grounds for pulling Stephen's credential is not valid. So they found another reasoning to pull his credential, not realizing that that reasoning was also invalid because he never reported on Dozie's name. And so, it's I certainly have more thoughts on this situation, but I'll be sure to stick to the facts on it. Stephen has done a fantastic job on this story, fully encompassing both sides of the equation. And it's just an unfortunate situation from an administration that has certainly lost its glory days. I'll say that.
Man, I just can't even. I mean, part of me, I feel like there's a joke to be made about Gary Patterson, that Gary, if only Gary had have known he had this kind of power to pull the credentials of the Star-Telegram, he would have done it years ago.
What's crazy, Matt, and this is probably me theorizing, and I want to be sure and preface with that. There were probably times where Gary Patterson wanted to do that, but the football administration had a good head on their shoulders. Chris Del Conte, he built that athletic program into what it is today, coming out of the Mountain West into the Big 12. And it's unfortunate that, we're not looking at the same reality that TCU was 10 years ago.
Well, I'm hearing from people that covered SMU and some folks that used to be at the Dallas Morning News that worked with Sonny and his staff back then, that this is not completely out of character for his group and some of the people around him. And in fact, and the reporter I'm talking about, because he was tweeting about it today, Sam, was it Sam Bloom or Sam Blum? What used to really kill him is he loved to take those photos of the crowd when there wasn't a big crowd, and he would tweet it out, and that really drove them nuts. But I think this is interesting on several fronts. People don't understand how thin-skinned these administrations can be. I've encountered it not, and it's not even talking about TCU, but it's kind of amazing sometimes when you kind of think you tweet something or whatever. And by the way, this happens at the NFL level, I'm sure. I can kind of remember, our buddy Clarence saying things that I'm sure you've said some things that the Cowboys don't like, but for the most part, the Cowboys, now only one time do I remember Mark Cuban and the Mavericks tried to deny access to Tim McMahon. And all they did was help create even more of the McMahon monster. I think he loved it, right? It's like, oh my God, I've been banned. I think he calls himself Ban McMahon or something, so they always sort of think, oh man, this is a good thing to do. Oh, we'll get them back. And really what happens, and this is Mosley theorizing here, but they end up looking small in the end. They end up looking very weak when you're basically we've got somebody who follows us around the country. The Star-Telegram pays to have somebody there all the time to cover our stuff. And yet we don't like this story or how things have been portrayed. So we're going to rip the Credential away. It's a week. And again, I've had some dealings with the, and maybe it's above his head, but the new football SID, and he seems fine, but it's not a good look. And the old SID, they ran him out of town. The guy that was there for like 25 or 30 years. So again, I know you want to stick to the facts. I don't know. I don't always have to do that, but
I'm just gonna shake my head.
That's right. By the way, I covered it at TCU game last year, and somebody showed up and took my credential and claimed to be Matt Mosley.
Wow.
And
you're popular.
And I think they, that crack staff over there turned him away, but they called me and they said, yeah, he said he's supposed to have the credential and that you'd given it to him, that I had forwarded. I'm like, what's this person's name? And they gave me the name. I'm like, I've never heard of that person. What I don't know is if he showed up wearing sunglasses.
Yeah, that would have been the dead giveaway. Your eyes could be like, they could be purple, and I would have no idea, Matt.
It freaks people out when I take them off. And so buddies like you who only know me like this, I have to keep them on. So anyway, all right, Nick. Well, that's good, and I hope this thing works out. But again, the Ireland story will be even more interesting if they try to keep this up. You just hate to send somebody over. Now, if the Star-Telegram decided, you know what, we're going to send Nick over there at the last minute. Now, not that you would agree to do this, but let's just say the Star-Telegram said, okay, sorry, you're mad at Steven, but we got to cover this game. We got to put somebody else on the beat for a week or until this thing sorts itself out. What do you think TCU would do? Now, and again, I'm not saying Star-Telegram would do this, but let's just say they did. Do you think TCU, would they go, okay, well, we'll let somebody else who, we approve of their reporting, that we'll let them cover the game? What do you think they would do?
From our understanding, the pulling the credential is a paper-wide thing, not just a Steven specific scenario. However, Steven's going to have ways to get what he needs to get on Saturday in Dublin. So he'll be situated one way or the other. And, there's a lot of people that are helping out the Fort Worth Star-Telegram these days. So I greatly appreciate that. We greatly appreciate it. So Steven's going to be good regardless, whether he has to sit in the stands or in the press box.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I like what you just said, because it's kind of like we've got people around the world. And I would love it if Steven did some kind of disguise.
The sunglasses. Can you ship them to him? Overnight it, Matt. We need them.
Oh man, the Wayfarers. I may send them over there. But all right, well, good. And I appreciate you jumping into that thing, and that was good to kind of get that word out. And it's it's a troubling kind of thing, but there's a lot of mistrust out there with the media. But when the media is trying to actually do its job and doing a good job, what I would hope is the rest of the media kind of comes to his aid. It's kind of like at the White House, it's kind of like, well, do we sit here and let the president rip these people and call these people names, or does somebody try to come to? I did like one time somebody tried to jump. I think Peter Ducey or somebody tried to come to the defense of a fellow reporter, and Trump looked at him and said, "Well, I don't like you either." It was like, well, okay, I tried.
That's the time we're in, Matt.
I tried to jump in and help you. Nick, I appreciate it and look forward to seeing you soon at a ball game.
Appreciate you, Matt. Thank you.
There he goes. Nick Harris of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. And he's that's good. Some good background material on what has led TCU to pull. This is a paper-wide deal. This is not just against Steven Johnson, apparently. They don't want the Star-Telegram covering them right now. All right, be careful what you wish for.